Welcome. Tonight, we journey to the ancient world, to a city that has lived for thousands of years in both memory and myth. Troy, you may know Troy through epic poetry, the clash of heroes, the fall of walls, the stories of gods and men. But tonight, we will not march to war. Instead, we will step quietly through its gates and wander inside the walls of Troy as its people lived. Before the flames, before the ruin, imagine yourself beneath the Aegean sun. The salty air drifts in from the sea, mingling with the smell of baked clay and fresh bread. Stone walls rise around you, massive and ancient, their surfaces warm to the touch, their shadows long in the late afternoon. Inside, streets twist and climb, lined with houses of mud brick and wood, shops, bustling, voices echoing. This is not a battlefield, but a living city. It's filled with farmers, merchants, priests, and children. Each day unfolds in rhythms both familiar and distant. Settle in now. Let the sounds of Troy surround you. The creak of wooden carts, the call of merchants at the market, the faint rustle of fabric in the wind. And let us walk together into the life of a city whose name has outlived empires. The sun rises slowly over the plain of Troy. From the walls, the view stretches wide. The glittering strait of the Dardanelles to one side. Fertile fields spread in waves of green and gold. And beyond, the soft blue haze of distant mountains. Inside the walls, the city stirs awake. Doors open, voices carry. And the sound of sandals scuffs across stone. Smoke curls from small hearths as fires are lit. Bread dough patted flat and placed to bake. The houses are modest for most. Mud brick walls, timber beams, red mats on the floors. Roof terraces hold jars of grain, or simply serve as places to sleep under the stars on warm nights. The streets are narrow, sometimes little more than passages between walls, but they are alive with the movement of people. Farmers bring goods from outside the walls, baskets of olives, figs, and barley. Donkeys carry loads of firewood. Fishermen arrive with nets heavy from the morning catch, the air tinged with the smell of salt and seaweed. In the marketplace, stalls are set up, wooden tables laden with pottery, bronze tools, and dyed cloth. The voices rise together, a steady chorus of bargaining and chatter. One merchant offers fine wool from the interior. Another shows bright jewelry of gold and carnelian, stones gleaming in the morning light. Children run through the crowd, their laughter mixing with the calls of sellers. A dog barks, chasing after them. Nearby, an old man sits in the shade of a doorway watching, his hands busy weaving a basket. The city smells of earth and smoke, of fresh bread and drying fish. The air is warm, but the sea breeze softens its edge. Everywhere there is motion, but it is not frantic. It is the rhythm of daily life, a city alive with its people. At midday, the sun grows heavy overhead. Shadows shorten, and many retreat indoors for rest. The streets quiet slightly, though the temple courtyards remain busy. Priests tend to altars, scent of incense rising to the sky, while worshippers bring offerings, a small jug of oil, a handful of grain, a cup of wine poured carefully at the base of a statue. Later, as evening cools the city, families gather for meals. Bowls of lentil stew, bread still warm, perhaps a little cheese or dried fruit. Voices grow softer, fires glow brighter, and from rooftops, the stars slowly appear. This is Troy not as legend, but as life, a city of merchants and families, of fields and markets, of rituals and meals. Its greatness lay not only in the strength of its walls, but in the simple constancy of its days. To step further inside the walls, let us shift from the hum of the marketplace to the quiet courtyards of the royal palace. For within Troy lived not only farmers and merchants, but kings and princes whose names would echo across the centuries. Among them was Hector, eldest son of King Priam, known in later epics as a warrior. But before the clash of shields and the thunder of battles, he, too, lived days filled with human rhythm. Imagine Hector in the early morning. The palace around him is larger than the common homes, but it is not a place of marble and gold. Its walls are strong, built of stone. Its floors covered with woven mats. Its courtyards filled with the scent of herbs and fresh air. He rises with the light, not always to prepare for war, but often to walk among the courtyards with his wife Andromache and their infant son. The child's laughter echoes softly against the stone, a sound no poet could forget. His duties stretch beyond the sword. As prince, he must hear disputes, manage supplies, and watch over the city's defenses. He walks the walls, looking out over the plain where farmers labor, and across the sea where ships gather. Each view is a reminder. Troy is strong, but Troy is never untouched by risk. Later in the day, he might sit in the council hall with his father. King Priam is aged, his voice calm, his hand steady upon his staff. Around him gather other sons, advisors, elders. They speak of trade, of alliances, of the ships that pass through the strait. For Troy's wealth rests not only in strength, but in its place between worlds. Meals in the palace are more abundant than those in common homes. Servants bring roasted meats, bread warm from the ovens, wine poured from bronze cups. And even here the same staples grain, oil, figs, cheese, form the heart of every meal. The difference is only in abundance, not in kind. As the evening settles, Hector walks once more along the ramparts. Below, the city glows with scattered fires. Families gathered in quiet talk. Above, the stars spread wide, the same stars his ancestors once gazed upon. And here, in this calm, he thinks not of glory, but of duty, to his father, to his wife, to the city that breathes behind its walls. Through Hector, we glimpse Troy not as myth, God as lived reality, a prince, yes, a warrior in the making, but also a man shaped by family, by responsibility, by the rhythm of a city that relied upon him. So the story of Troy is not only of battles to come, but of ordinary days, quiet decisions, the weight of leadership carried in silence. When we speak of Troy, we speak not of a single city, but of many. For beneath the soil of northwestern Anatolia, archaeologists have uncovered layer upon layer of settlements, each built upon the ruins of the last, stretching back more than 3,000 years. Imagine standing at the site of Hisarlik today, the hill where ancient Troy once stood. As the wind sweeps across the plain, the stones rise in terraces and walls. Some weathered, some rebuilt, all holding whispers of the lives once lived there. The first serious excavations began in the 19th century, led by Heinrich Schliemann, driven by dreams of Homer's epic, cut deep into the hill, uncovering treasures, but also destroying much in his haste. Later archaeologists, more careful, revealed the truth. Troy was not a single city that fell once. but a place reborn again and again. The layers are numbered: Troy, I, 2, 3, and so on. Up to Troy Ix, each tells its own story. Early Troys were small, simple fortifications of stone and mud brick. Later Troys grew larger, with massive walls, gates, and towers. The Troy of legend, the one remembered in Homer's Iliad, is often associated with Troy Vi or Seven, whose defenses were formidable, its streets crowded, its houses built close together. Archaeology reveals the rhythms of its culture. Pottery, both plain and painted, speaks of meals shared in homes. The carrying of grain and oil, bronze tools and weapons remind us of both work and war. Seals and small tablets hint at trade, suggesting that Troy was not isolated, but a hub where merchants from Aegean and Anatolian worlds met. Altars once stood within the walls, altars of stone, where offerings of grain, oil, or wine were placed. Fragments of figurines show us the gods they honored. Perhaps Athena, perhaps local deities of hearth and field, their names half forgotten, but their presence still felt in the stones. There is mystery, too, in the signs of destruction. Archaeologists have found walls toppled by earthquake, layers of ash suggesting fire, arrowheads buried in the soil. Did war bring the city down? Did natural disaster strike? The evidence is never conclusive, and so Troy remains a place of questions, as much as answers, and yet among the ruins, there are also signs of care. Small clay figurines of women, perhaps carried as charms, children's toys carved from wood or clay, beads strung into necklaces, lost and then buried by time. These are not relics of kings or battles, but of ordinary people, whose lives were every bit as real as the legends. Imagine yourself kneeling among the ruins, your hand brushing over a shard of pottery, its surface still smooth after thousands of years. It once held grain, perhaps carried through the same narrow streets we pictured before. It is a fragile thing, yet it endures. A reminder that the smallest traces of daily life, Achaea, are often the most powerful. Troy remains both real and mythical. A city that existed in flesh and stone, and in poetry and song. The archaeology grounds it in reality, but the culture, the stories, lift it into the realm of the eternal. Inside the walls of Troy, life was not equal. The city was bound together by stone and ritual, but the daily rhythm was shaped by wealth, status, and duty. At the very top stood the royal family. King Priam, gray-haired and dignified, dwelt in a palace of stone and timber, larger than any other building in the city. Its courtyards were shaded, its walls decorated with bright textiles, its storerooms filled with grain, oil, and wine. Here, nobles and envoys came and went, discussing trade routes and alliances, while servants carried jugs of water, prepared meals, and tended to guests. The royal household lived in abundance. Their meals included roasted meats, honey, and rich wine. Jewelry of gold and carnelian adorned the women. Bronze weapons and polished armor stood ready for the men. Their days were filled with decisions of state, yet within their halls, same sounds of laughter, song, and family life could be heard. A reminder that even kings are fathers, even queens are mothers. Below them were the wealthy merchants. They lived in larger houses than most, plastered walls and tiled courtyards. Their wealth came not from conquest, but from trade. Troy stood at the crossroads of the Aegean and Anatolia. Merchants grew rich on goods passing through its gates. Tin and copper for bronze, fabrics dyed bright purple, ivory from distant lands. In their homes, the smell of imported oils mingled with local bread. Their children learned to read and write, for trade required records as much as coin. Then came the artisans and craftsmen. Potters shaped clay into vessels. Painters decorated them with spirals and lines. Bronze workers hammered tools and weapons, their forges glowing in small workshops. Weavers produced cloth on looms, fingers quick and practiced. These were not the poorest, but neither were they powerful. Their lives balanced between security and hardship, depending always on the rhythm of trade. For the majority, life was simpler still. The farmers who brought grain, olives, and figs to the market, the laborers who hauled stones for walls or timber for building, the women who rose before dawn to grind grain, their hands steady on the quern. Their homes were small, their meals plain. Stews of lentils, bread, coarse and filling. Their children played in narrow streets, barefoot, chasing one another in laughter, their futures tied to the same work as their parents. And beneath all, in the shadows of society, were the enslaved, some captured in raids, others born into bondage. Their labor was unseen, yet essential. It's grinding, hauling, cleaning, tending. History rarely records their names, but the city's life could not have endured without them. Yet, despite these divisions, the people of Troy shared in certain rhythms. Festivals brought them together, priests leading processions, musicians playing lyres and drums, dancers moving in circles as offerings were given to the gods. The marketplace, too, united them. As nobles and farmers alike walked the same streets, hearing the same voices calling prices, breathing the same scent of baked bread and smoke. In this way, Troy was a city of contrasts, but also of connection. The high walls enclosed all, king and laborer, noble and servant. And as the sun set behind the mountains, the fires of rich and poor alike flickered against the night. As night settles deeper over the plains of Troy, you can pause to reflect on what the city truly represented. For Troy was not only stone walls and bustling markets, it was a bridge between east and west, between memory and myth, between the fleeting and the eternal. The people of Troy lived with a deep awareness of time. Each day carried its tasks, grinding grain, weaving cloth, mending tools, or carrying goods to market. Each season carried its burdens. The planting, the harvest, the uncertainty of weather, the watchful gaze at ships approaching the shore. And yet beyond this rhythm, there was always the thought of legacy. They built walls not only for defense, but to endure. Stones set one upon another, so heavy, so firm, that even after fire and ruin, their outlines still stand today. They inscribed names, they carved altars, they offered sacrifices to gods, believing that memory could outlast mortality. Imagine a family gathered on the rooftop of a modest house. The day's work finished, the night cool and gentle. They look up at the stars, the same constellations we know today for them. Each star carried meaning, a reminder of ancestors, a sign of fate, a marker of seasons yet to come. In the palace, too, the same stars shone overhead. Priam might have sat quietly, his many sons and daughters around him, his mind turning not to war, but to the fragile peace of his household. He knew that kingdoms rise and fall, but he also knew that the bonds of family, the passing of stories, were what endured. This sense of legacy, that life is brief, but memory stretches long, is what binds Troy to us even now. Though centuries have passed, though empires have come and gone, the idea of Troy lives on, reminds us that ordinary lives, it's the daily meals, the laughter of children, the weight of responsibility, are as much a part of history as any battle or king. As you rest now, consider this, that the story of Troy, like the story of all great cities, is not only written in epic poems, but in the quiet persistence of its people. People who lived, who worked, who dreamed, inside walls that they hoped would last forever. And so, our journey inside the walls of Troy comes to an end. We have walked its narrow streets, listened to the voices of its merchants, watched families gather on their rooftops, and glimpsed both kings in their halls, laborers in their fields. We have seen how archaeology uncovers its many layers, how legend and history weave together, and how life within those strong walls was not only about battles or glory, but about the steady rhythm of survival, the patterns of trade, the rituals of worship, and the bonds of family. Tonight, Troy rests not as a city of fire and ruin, but as a city alive with memory. Imagine again the evening within its walls. The air cools after the long heat of day. The scent of bread and smoke drifts upward, mingling with the salt of the sea breeze. Voices soften, dogs bark distantly, and the stars appear above. Same stars the Trojans once watched, their light undimmed across the centuries. It is quiet now. The gates are closed. The streets fall still. Only the gentle murmur of the sea carries across the plain. Within homes, families settle into sleep, their lives simple and steady, their worries set aside for the night, and as you listen, you may feel the same calm rhythm, your breath matching the tide. Your heart steady as the footsteps of countless generations before you. The story of Troy is one of endurance. Though walls may crumble, though time may pass, the memory remains, etched in stone, written in song, whispered still in the quiet of history. Let that quiet carry you now. The day is done. The city sleeps, and so may you.
Good night.